Good morning, everyone. We're just waiting for everyone who's in the waiting room to join, so we'll give it a couple seconds. Okay, it looks like everybody's in, so we'll get started. Apologies for starting a little bit late today, but we wanted to welcome you to our community roundtable call on this January morning. We appreciate you joining us. The Broadband office staff is on the call. Just a few reminders, we're going to give some updates on what's going on. There's a lot going on in the world of broadband. So we've got some updates for you, and then we'll open it up for Q&A, so you can ask us any questions that you have. It doesn't have to be on what we present, but it could be anything that's on your mind. So I'm going to jump right in and hand it over to Paige to give us some legislative updates.
All right, thank you, Lauren. My name is Paige Osman. I am a senior policy advisor with OIT's government affairs team, and we'll just jump right into it. So we do have 3 wireless telecommunication bills that have been introduced. These did come from the Cell Phone Interim Study Committee, and the first one is SB 2531. So this is a single point of contact wireless services bill. It has been assigned to the Senate Business, Labor, and Technology Committee and scheduled for next week, so on January 28th at 2 p.m. It will be recorded, so there's a link to the audio if you want to listen to it. So what this bill does is it expands the scope of the CBO to perform certain duties and tasks related to wireless services. And this bill was drafted in the Cell Phone Interim Study Committee, and it's the same as the officially introduced version, so no changes there. And in the Cell Phone Committee's draft, OIT did take a neutral position on that bill, and we do have some pending positions for the officially introduced versions that we will be able to share with you soon. So the next bill is HB 251056. This is the Local Government Permitting Wireless Telecommunications Bill, and it has been assigned to the Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee. This bill, what it does is it requires local governments to approve or reject applications for wireless telecommunication facilities within 60 days. The bill does other things as well, but that's a big change there. And so this bill was also the same version as drafted in the Cell Phone Committee. And in that bill, OIT did not take a position on, as OIT is not implicated in it. So we are continuing to monitor this, and we will keep you updated on any positions that we have. And then finally, the third bill is HB 1080. This is the Wireless Telephone Infrastructure Deployment Incentives Bill, which has been assigned to the Business Affairs or House Business Affairs and Labor Committee. So what this bill does is it requires the CBO to implement a wireless deployment grant program, which is similar to the Broadband Deployment Grant Program that was established by HB 241336 last session. So this bill is actually different from the one that was drafted in the Cell Phone Interim Committee. And in that one, OIT did take an opposition position to this bill. We're analyzing this version, and we will again keep you posted on our official position. This bill does impact HB 241336 and the high cost support mechanism funding. So we'll just continue to engage with sponsors on these bills and keep you updated. So next slide, please. All right, so the Joint Technology Committee, that is OIT's oversight committee, they are meeting weekly on Wednesdays at 8 a.m. These meetings are recorded. Again, there's a link to the audio if you'd like to listen in on them. The CBO has not been scheduled for any upcoming meetings yet, but we are expecting to be so in the near future, and we will keep you posted on that as well. They did announce new members to the JTC for 2025. The new members are Senator Rodriguez, Senator Marchman, and Representative Pascal. The returning members are Representative Titone, Representative Weinberg, and Senator Baisley. And then the committee did nominate Representative Titone as chair and Senator Marchman as vice chair. And also, we're just having our broadband legislative stakeholder weekly calls. So those are at Thursdays at 1 p.m. I encourage you to register for those, add them to your calendar. It's really a great time for us to provide updates as well as answer questions and hear your updates as well. These are also recorded, so even if you can't attend them live, you will receive a follow-up email with all of the information, including the recordings and slides, as long as you're registered. So definitely encourage you to register for those. And next slide, please. Okay, I did want to mention CDOT's Stick Once program. This is a federal requirement. It's required by the Mobile Now Act. And CDOT is in the process of revamping this program. So they are asking for stakeholder feedback. There's a survey that's available. It's out now, it's live. So encourage you to take that to provide feedback. It does close January 31st. So please get your responses in by then. And yeah, we just really appreciate your feedback on that. So thank you. And I think, Lauren, you're speaking next.
Yeah. Thank you, Paige. A couple other things we wanted you to be aware of. Our Broadband Community Ready certification program has opened another application window. So just to remind you what this is, the Broadband Office has offered a checklist of things communities can do to prepare to deploy broadband. It's kind of a step-by-step guide. So, and then there's also additional resources that we provide. And if a community wants to follow this checklist and complete every item, you can submit that via application to the Broadband Office. It's a really simple application. And then we will deem you Broadband Ready certified. And we give you a certificate, we list you on our website. But really the more important thing is your community has taken the steps necessary to prepare to deploy broadband. So application window for that certification is open until February 20th. The other item we wanted you to be aware of is the Office of Future of Work, who we work closely with on digital inclusion initiatives, received the State Digital Equity Capacity Grant from the NTIA. They're going to receive $12 million to fund some of their initiatives from their digital inclusion plan, which there's a link here in the slides. We will provide these slides after so you can access this information. But it's really going to fund the pre-planning work. So they're going to do a lot of work to best understand where the need is. And then awareness. It's going to fund an awareness campaign as well. So if you want to learn more, the press release is also linked in the slides. But we're excited for the Office of Future Work to receive money to do some of this important digital equity work. Okay, now I'm going to hand it over to Judd to give us an update on Universal Service Fund.
Yeah, this is kind of tangential to this group, but we thought we'd bring it to your attention. As you might know, our Attorney General is fairly tech savvy and very interested in all things broadband and wireless. So Colorado took the lead role in drafting an amicus brief on this U.S. fund, Universal Service Fund. It was FCC versus Consumers Research. And you might be familiar with it, but what happened was two different circuit courts, the Sixth Circuit and the 11th Circuit, have consistently held that the Universal Service Fund is completely constitutional. Then it got to the Fifth Circuit, which is out of Louisiana and some other states down south, and that circuit held that the Universal Service Fund was unconstitutional. As you may know, the Universal Service Fund is very important to the broadband and wireless and telecom industry. It funds over $8 billion if you participate in CAF or RDOF, Lifeline for low-income people, E-rate for schools and libraries, and rural health. It really focuses on universal service, primarily in rural and low-income places. And the way it's set up is the Congress, of course, delegated this to the FCC, and the FCC established it. It's been up and running for 33 years, I think. And then the FCC uses an outside organization called USAC, a nonprofit organization that helps them really in an accounting capacity. USAC adds up all the costs they're predicting for the next year, and then assigns a contribution rate to all the participants in the Universal Service Fund, and then that's what they pay, and then that money is then doled out every year. So what the Fifth Circuit held was the delegation from Congress to the FCC. There's called an anti-delegation rule. Basically, Congress can't delegate, which is the legislative branch, cannot delegate too much power to a executive branch, which is the FCC. They held that that's okay, but they didn't really like it. And then they also held that the FCC's delegation to this outside organization, USAC, they didn't really like that either, but they didn't hold that it was unconstitutional. But what they did hold was the combination of those two delegations, Congress to the FCC, FCC to USAC, you put those together, and they held that it was unconstitutional. It goes against the anti-delegation rule. So nobody has ever held this. The Supreme Court has never picked up on this type of a policy. So we filed an amicus brief in favor of holding the USF as constitutional. Our amicus brief really didn't get into kind of the legalese, but we did focus on, the impact to the states, the impact to ISPs, the impact to broadband providers, the rural areas. And that's mostly what we focused on. There's other legal scholars that focused on the legal issues. But we got 22 states to sign on. There is another brief by 4 or 5 other states they took the position that it is unconstitutional. But we had a lot of states on our side. So we'll see how that goes. Supreme Court might come out sometime in the summer of 2025 with a decision. So I thought we'd update you on that. And then are we going into, the BEAD. I think Brandy's out today. So I was filling in a little bit as best I can. Well, I'm welcome any of the other CBO staff to chime in as you see fit. As you might have seen, we published an addendum to the BEAD program on January 10th for round 2. We had a fairly successful round 1, but under the BEAD program, we have to have 100% coverage of unserved and underserved locations. So we didn't quite get there. So we published an addendum for round 2. For round 1, we're sending out those notices basically last week and this week. We cannot publicly announce those awards. It's for competition reasons, and the NTIA does not allow you to do that. We are taking those locations off the map, so you will not be able to bid for those round 1 awarded locations in round 2. That map is coming out soon. That should be out hopefully next week sometime. We're going to have a couple webinars, as we typically do, on round 2 and the differences that I'll go over as well. And then during that application window, as we usually do, we're going to have office hours. Next slide.
Yeah, a couple things to note on round 2 here, Judd, if you want to cover those.
Yeah, and then this is kind of what the round 2 addendum lists. These are the biggest changes. The biggest change is, as you remember, in the first round, if you proposed a project area, you had to cover 100% of the broadband serviceable locations in that area, all unserved and underserved. And we've kind of relaxed that requirement. Basically, we're expecting you to cover most of the BSLs in that project area, but you are able to identify high-cost BSLs and remove those from the application. The Colorado Broadband Office will address those high-cost BSLs in some other mechanism, including potentially low Earth orbit. These are probably your very high-cost, really remote locations that are just throwing your application out of whack. And so you can remove those. The rest of the BSLs, you cover those. We've allowed that. We had to get NTIA approval to do that, which we got. Second one was also NTIA approval. We raised the low-income service option from $30 to $50. You can also get a waiver for up to $75. We removed the bid bond requirement. we were requiring a bid bond between the time you got your award, official award, to the time you contracted, just to make sure that you are true to your word and you stay in on that contract. We've moved that. It cost extra money. We also had a $20 million project capsized. We moved that. And then the other thing we clarified in the first round, we said, well, you put in your application and that's a binding agreement. And we realized that there's more moving parts to that. Like the first one, you can remove some BSLs. We don't know exactly what the BSLs are until we actually contract with you. So we've removed that requirement and said, well, the grant agreement, when you finally sign that will list the BSLs, it'll list your project areas, and that's the determinative agreement. And then the last thing that Addendum 2 did is set the ground and the playing field for low Earth orbit applicants. As you may know, the NTIA came out with guidance on how to address low Earth orbit applicants and what they call capacity grants. So they get more capacity to serve more people from satellite, and you can give a grant for that. So we've clarified how we're going to go about doing that. And all these items, after round one, we had a kind of a stakeholder survey, and we allowed the stakeholders to give us input on how we might improve the program. And that's where most of these came from. So we really appreciate your input. That's exactly where this came from. We listened, and these are the changes that we hope in round two will spur coverage of those last bits of the high cost areas in Colorado. I think that's it. I don't know if there's any questions on USF or that addendum.
Thanks, Jed. Yeah, we can take questions on anything at this point too. I know Jed covered a lot, so thank you very much. But again, questions on anything that any of us covered, or just anything else in general, you can put your question in the chat if you would like, and I can read it for the group to answer, or you can just come off mute. There's a raise your hand button if you know how to use that, but you can come off mute and ask your question as well. So we'll pause and take questions. Yeah, Craig, go ahead. Craig, are you still on mute? I don't think you're still on mute, but we can't hear you. Okay. Craig, you can drop your question in the chat too. For some reason we can't. Oh, thank you. Okay, so he asked, could you talk about DE grants in Colorado? Do you mean what digital equity grants are in the state of Colorado that communities or ISPs can apply for? Or, is there a list of grants awarded yet for digital equity? I am not aware of one. I don't know if CBO staff, if any of you, no, that's kind of an Office of Future Work. That's their initiative, but I don't know. CBO staff, do any of you know the answer? Okay, I'm taking silence as a no. So Craig, why don't we get back to you on that question, if you're good with that?
Sorry,
yeah, and you might check out the office.
Sorry, I couldn't find my mute button. So the first step for the DE grants is actually going to be, for the digital equity program is going to be sort of a needs assessment. And so the applications for grants won't be going out. So we were awarded our funds from the feds, but the grants themselves haven't been allocated.
Thanks, Allie. Jed, did you have something to add there too? Or you?
No, I was going to say you might check out the Office of Future Work on the web. It's not our website, but they may list, or when they do make grants, they'll list it over there.
Yeah, we can provide that link in the chat for their office. So, okay, thank you both. Scott, go ahead with your question.
Hey there. I'm curious about what is the deal with announcing the award winners and B, eventually I'm in Eagle County and I'm the IT director, and I'm just trying to understand who's doing what here and being awarded where as a byproduct of BEAD. And in our situation, like we had only 3 applicants, and one of them seems to be this mystery applicant that just about covers the entire Eagle County. So I'm really interested in what that might be. And all I really heard is we can't announce the awardees because of the NTIA, but eventually somebody's got to announce something. So just
Yeah.
kind of trying to get my head around like when some information might be forthcoming beyond, removing things from the map is about all I've heard so far. So super curious about that.
Yeah, it is a little bit restrictive. So the grantees or the awardees in round one will be notified. So they'll know that they won something in round one. The restriction is that we just can't publicly announce that. So, and then the awardees the non-awardees, people who are not awarded, will also be notified that your grant was not awarded. So we can do that, but we can't do it publicly. It's kind of an anti-competitive or anti-competition rule that the NTIA set down as, and it was also a kind of a mother may I. The way the NTIA grant program works is you kind of have to ask the NTIA for permission at every single step. So basically what we have to do is we have to give our preliminary awards, go to the NTIA and give them, I think, 10 days or 2 weeks to look at that. Then they can say, yes, you can publicly announce that. But we're not done with the whole award program, round one, round two, and Leo. And when we're done, we'll go back to the NTIA and say, can we announce this? So that's why, the individuals should know that they were granted or not granted, but we just can't publicly announce it. And as far as the one that's all of Eagle County, I'm just surmising here, there were a couple Leo bidders in round one that bid Leo, and Leo, that could cover all of
No, I mean, it's not, I mean, that would be my like educated guess, and I was
Me too.
surprised by that. But I mean, the way you're saying it is, unless somebody like puts a news release in the paper that we received BEAD, we won't find out about it until BEAD's entirely awarded, I guess. And that's even a maybe.
Till it's preliminary awarded, because we'll figure out who all the grantees are. Then, even after that, we have to go back to the NTIA and submit what's called our final proposal. Remember we did initial proposal round volume 1 and volume 2, got those approved. Then you have to go back to the NTIA, get your final proposal, which lists all the awards you're going to make, and they have to approve that too. So it's a very ping pong program.
Okay, well, I'll just throw in my request into the hat that I kind of get the anti-competitive thing at the point that you're competing, but from the local interest point of view, like it would be really helpful to know when awards have been awarded and made. So
Yeah, if you have contacts at those grantees, you could contact them. They would know whether they were awarded or not.
well, I do. I know what I know. I don't know what I don't know is sort of the.
Yeah.
So 2 out of the 3 of them, yeah, and one of them's even reached out to me and told me, but yeah, where you just gotta, and I can see the new map when it's released and sort of imply, well, it doesn't matter because it wasn't awarded, but if it was, I'd super like to know. And
Yeah.
there's sort of a limit on my who do I reach out to kind of thing at some point. So anyway, like hey, just again, like I know it's not your guys' fault, but I hate like this like not sharing information. It's starting to feel kind of opaque, and I don't like that, but I know how it goes.
Yeah, I wish it were more transparent.
Appreciate your help. Anything you guys can do to like shift that a little bit, but I got the general idea right now. I appreciate your response.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the chat here. Andrew Brandt asks about access and is there a price cap to end users for this program? For the program, there's not a price cap, but each awardee must offer a low-income service option. So that's what I went over, that we raised from $30 to $50. The low-income service option is for qualified low-income subscribers. We used to have the ACP program, which had all the criteria for how you qualify for that. It's things like, your family's on food stamps, lunch programs. You could qualify a lot of different ways. Now we leave it a little bit, because ACP went away, we leave that a little bit more open, but we kind of request or suggest that you use the ACP type criteria, but it's up to each ISP to define that program. And then you have to offer it, and it's now $50 capped per month for the low income program.
Thanks, Judd.
Yeah, Sarah from NTIA says nothing's actually awarded until NTIA approves. Yeah, we're calling these preliminarily selected. So we're not using the word awarded. We're not using anything definitive. It's preliminary accepted until NTIA approves.
Judd, real quick, Sarah has her hand up, so I don't know if you
Oh
want
yeah,
to
maybe Sarah can
add to
fill
that,
in there.
Sarah.
Yeah, thanks, Judd. I'm just like lurking in the background over here. So just two points of clarification. So the first is on the low cost service option. So ISPs are not allowed to define who qualifies for a low cost service option. They still have to use the ACP qualification eligibility tool.
Okay.
NTIA is working on something that will support ISPs in finding out whether or not an end user qualifies for that. But basically, anybody that was on ACP will also qualify for this low cost service option, and they've already been through the ACP eligibility tool, so that will still be available to ISPs. And then to the gentleman in Eagle County, like it's understandable the frustration. In most grant programs, even the organizations that would be directly affected, like your city or county or municipality, won't know until they're fully awarded by the awarding agency. It just so happens that BEAD is really, really public, and that's why there's a lot of eyes on it. But the other thing I'll say is, if you are partnering with any of those ISPs and are curious about what's being built, like Judd said, those ISPs have the right to tell you. It's just that the state of Colorado can't publicly post the results until the NTIA finally approves them, but they will have a period of time where they post the final proposal before it goes to the NTIA for 30 days, for 14 days, that's been cut in half, for review. So that is where you'll get to see who they're proposing wins the applications for the BEAD money.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sarah. Other questions in here? Will round 2 start next Monday? I don't think we have a date yet. It's not next Monday. And you have ETA on updated mapping data. I'm thinking that's potentially sometime next week. And then we wanted to give applicants a little bit of time to look at the map. And after that, we would open the grant window. So you may have a week or 10 days to look at the map. Then we would open the grant portal for the applications. So that might be a couple weeks out at least. Next question is similar to the transparency. I think we covered that.
The next one is on Dig Once. I don't know if Paige, I don't know how much you know about Dig Once program, and you can answer Craig's question in the chat. Do we have a view on why Dig Once effort is CDOT specific versus Colorado wide and applicable more broadly?
I would suggest reaching out to CDOT. I can pop in some contact information for that because I'm not sure.
Thank you, Paige. Okay. Jed, you can keep going if you want. You're doing great answering the questions.
Yeah, I
so
think
Nate's is the next one.
I think some of those we answered. That was Dig. Allie Terry put in the link to our restrictions on when we'll make announcements. That's from the NTIA. As Sarah said, we will publish for 14 days as we send it to the NTIA for their approval, who the initial grantees are.
Scott's question, do we have an anticipated date of posting tentative proposals? I know we have to get through round 2 first.
Yeah, we got to get through round 2, then we'll have to address Leo, then we have to package all of that together, and we have to assure that we have covered 100% of unserved, certainly unserved, and depending on money, underserved locations, which in Colorado, we're going to be in that situation. We're going to try to cover all unserved. We have to cover all unserved, as many underserved as we can. I think, as Brandy has already noted, we're probably going to have to use what's called our extremely high cost per location threshold, which what that does is allow us to say those bids are too high. So we're going to have to lop those off and go to either non-fiber solutions, or even at Leo. At the end of the day, we're going to have to cover some of these locations by Leo. Craig asks, did they make any changes? I just saw an executive order that went out the door. I haven't read it yet. It was kind of more of a blanket executive branch agency directive to, no new regulations, put a halt on as many regulations as you can. It also directed all the agencies to go try to cut down on regulations, eliminate regulations where they can. Interestingly, the NTIA has already done a lot of that. They've really tried to streamline as much as they can within the governance of the statute and the NOFO. So they've already done a lot. I don't know if Sarah has anything more on any impacts from some of those executive orders on the NTIA. And I know the director left as well.
Okay.
Sorry, folks, I can't comment on that right now.
Yeah, I've only just saw that executive order. It was very broad brushed, nothing real specific.
And I can just say that the state is looking at the president's executive orders and examining the impact on state programs.
Thank you. Paige dropped the contact for CDOT in the chat, by the way. I'm sorry, I can't remember who asked that question, but that is in there. And I don't see any other questions at this time. But we'll give it a couple more seconds in case someone does. While we wait, just in case you're chatting one, I will remind you there's multiple ways you can stay informed, which I will say to multiple comments about transparency and stuff. We will communicate as much as we possibly can when we can to keep you informed on just where we're at in the process, what's next, timelines, that kind of information. So make sure you are on our newsletter. That's where newsletter and bulletins, that's where most of that information comes out. But there's other sources of information like our newsletter, the website where we'll post information on the grant program, and then our social accounts. So check there. And then as always, you can always email us if you've got questions. So one other question did pop up in the chat. Andrew, would you please consider leaving Twitter? I appreciate that. I'd love to know why, if you're comfortable sharing. If you're not, that's okay. But
is it not obvious?
I just wanted to make sure.
I might add maybe a counter or a supplement to that is maybe we join. There's Blue Sky. There's a bunch of different.
There's Threads now.
That we should consider. Yeah, for outreach. That's good.
I will tell you that OIT Communications Office is considering dropping all of our Twitter accounts. So that is actually being considered right now. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, thank you. We appreciate that. Mastodon, yeah, thank you. Okay, well, if there are no other comments or questions, we will give you a little bit of time back, but thank you so much for your participation and your conversation. It really, really is helpful to our office. And I will share the recording of this meeting and then the slide deck here shortly. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks.